Hello and welcome to another UCL fantasy video. Today we are going to be looking through all of the predicted lineups for the Euro 2024 tournament. So this might be a bit of a longer one today because we do have to go through 24 different teams and explain the lineups, but we'll see how quickly I can get through them all. As always, make sure to join the mini league down below my head if you haven't already. Make sure to like and subscribe as well if you enjoy the video, and we'll get straight into things. So this is just my predicted lineups based off of some news, some fans kind of like looking through some of the different countries' fans, some of the news articles, and kind of just looking at the most recent games, the qualifiers and stuff like that, to kind of gather some information to make a predicted lineup. So we are starting off with the German team. You can see the predicted lineups on the left hand side, and then we've got the rest of the squad. Not obviously the entire squad, but the majority of the squad on the right hand side, and then we've got kind of colour coded and how like the chances I think that they could make it in to the starting 11. You'll kind of understand as we get more into it, but we are starting with the German team. Again, a team that I think is pretty solid here. I think this starting 11 is pretty final. I did originally have Ter Stegen in goals, and Sané playing at right wing, but I was quickly corrected by a couple of people on Twitter, a good few to be fair, that Neuer was 100% going to be the starting goalkeeper, and Musiala was also nailed in the team as well. So despite Sané starting in 7 of the qualifying matches, he isn't making this squad, but I have got him in green because I think, again, the fact he started in 7 out of 10, I believe, yes, so 7 out of 10 qualifiers Sané started in. I feel like it'd be unfair to say that he's not going to make the squad. So I've got him in green because I think there is a pretty high chance that he could make it into the starting 11 one way or another. Gundogan obviously looks like the obvious pick that you would take out there with one of Musiala and Wirtz coming into the middle. But with Gundogan being the captain, I don't think he is going to be moving anywhere. And I don't think you can really move him back either because I don't think Kroos and Gundogan is really too much of a defensive midfield partnership, if that makes sense. So I think that is going to be the starting 11. Rom, another one at left back who has possibilities to start, but he hasn't started in any of Germany's last 10 games. And Mittelstadt, if you've been watching the previous videos, definitely looks like a pretty decent one to go for. I believe it's 2 goals and 4 assists he has for Stuttgart in the league this season. And he also scored in Germany's most recent friendly as well. So I think he does have that spot nailed on. Next up is Scotland. So obviously this is the one that I'm going to be able to talk the most on, as this is the one I've got the most information on, being someone who watches all the Scotland games. So again, pretty nailed on squad here when looking at the 11. The only one that I really don't have an idea about is who's going to play at right wing back, with Aaron Hickey and Nathan Patterson, both of the starting right wing backs, both out injured for the tournament. It looks like Anthony Ralston is the only available right back. We have called up McCrory, who has never played for Scotland before, and James Forrest, who could possibly play at right wing back. He is mostly a right winger, but he could also play there right wing back. Again, someone who hasn't really played for Scotland in a long time. So Ralston as well played none of the qualifying matches. So you're really looking at a right wing back who hasn't played for Scotland in a long time. And I don't really know who it's going to be, so it's going to be one of those 3, whether it's Ralston, McCrory or Forrest, in my opinion. The rest of the team I think is pretty sorted. The goalkeeper is definitely going to be Gunn. The rest of the defence 100% nailed on. Midfield, I do have Christie as a possible option. It depends really what formation Scotland are going to go for. The one who would come out would be Billy Gilmore. If we were to play a 5-4-1 formation, that would be with Christie on the left, McGregor and McTominay both in the middle, and then McGinn would drop to the right, and it would be Dykes alone up front. So that is a possibility. I do think the best 11 is going to have Gilmore in it, but as always a possibility. Same with Shea Adams, could come into the squad, but the starting striker is going to be Dykes. And next up, we're going to take a look at Hungary, and it's another team that does look pretty straightforward. I think most of their players do look pretty nailed on. The one option that is a bit of a 50-50 is going to be the goalkeeper spot, and that's between Gulácsi and Debuz, I believe it's how it's said. Now, Debuz played in all 8 of Hungary's qualifying matches. Gulácsi was previously the number 1 for Hungary, but did have a long period of time injured this season, and hasn't really came back to the form that he was previously. And Debuz also played really, really well for Hungary in those qualifiers, so there is a high chance, and I do believe Debuz does keep his spot over the course of the tournament. So again, only a 4 million goalkeeper. If you are looking for someone who could be pretty decent at only 4 million, Debuz I think does look like a pretty decent one. We've got Dardai as well, someone who could possibly come in, was previously with Germany as his nationality and swapped over to Hungary, similar to Willi Orban, who is also in this starting team, but I don't think he's going to make it into the team. The reason I've got him in orange is because why would you kind of like swap allegiances if you weren't going to be getting any game time? But I'm looking at the Hungary defence now. Lang played 7 out of the 8 qualifiers, Szalai played 8 out of the 8 qualifiers, and Orban played in 4 out of the 8 qualifiers, and Orban was also injured throughout a period of the qualifying phase. So all 3 of those centre-backs look as though they are going to be playing. Dardai, I think, could possibly make his way in there somehow, but I don't think it is going to be very likely. Then at striker, a bit of a 50-50, a bit of a toss-up between Varga and Adam. Varga started in 4 of the 8 qualifiers, and Adam started in 4, or the other 4 qualifiers. The reason I went for Varga is because Varga has 20 goals in 24 games for Ferencváros this season, and he has just looked really good. Varga also was better for Hungary, scoring 4 goals in the qualifier to Adam's 2 goals in the qualifier. So we're going for Varga in here, and Varga in here and Adam as the bench option. Now, next up is Switzerland, which was probably the most difficult starting 11 to try and predict. Obviously, I'm not going to be an expert on every single one of these teams, so if you're watching and you have more information on any of these teams, or you think someone in my predicted 11 is not going to start, or you think I've made a blatant error, just leave it in the comments. I'd like the comment section to kind of just be somewhere where we can kind of make corrections in the starting 11. Obviously, we are all trying to predict these starting 11s, so if you can leave it in the comments, if you've got some information, just drop it and let me know and everyone else know. So the Switzerland team does really look like a really difficult one to try and predict. The reason for that is they've literally went through 5 different formations in their last 10 games. They've played a 4-3-3 3 times, a 5-2-2-1 3 times, a 5-3-2 twice, a 5-2-1-2 once, and a 4-2-3-1 once as well. So it looks really, really difficult to try and predict this Swiss team. I have went for this one as the 4-3-3 formation, but you'll notice on the squad side, I've got Elvedi as a very high chance of making it into the team. Reason for that is that he did start in 7 of the qualifier matches, whereas Schär only started in 2, and obviously with Elvedi potentially playing in a 5-back formation as well. Schär was obviously injured, which is why, or probably why, he's only started in 2 of those qualifier matches. But what the looks of things is, what happens is when Switzerland play a 5-back, Rodriguez plays as the left centre-back. Akanji always plays for Switzerland. He started in all 10 of the qualifying matches, and then it's one of Schär or Elvedi most of the time as the other centre-back. I went for Mbabu and at right back, because I think he is more of the right back like kind of player for Switzerland. But if that was to be a 5-back, it probably would be someone like Widmer who comes in instead. I've noted that in red, but that probably should be orange. And left wing back as well, that would probably be Garcia if they are going to play that kind of formation. Looking at up front as well, we've got Okafor potentially as a right winger striker. He always is kind of pretty decent there. He did start in 3 of the 10 qualifying matches, which is why he isn't in the starting 11. Front 3 alone, we've got Vargas, who started in 9, Amdouni, who started in 6, and Shaqiri, who started in 7 as well. So the Switzerland team is really, really difficult. I've got a note here that says only 5 of the players, or 5 total players, started in 75% or more of the qualifying matches, and that is Rodriguez playing in 9, Akanji playing in 10, Xhaka playing in all 10, Freuler played in 9, and Vargas played in 9. So again, a lot of chopping and changing with this Switzerland team. So if you're from Switzerland or you watch a lot of Swiss football, make sure to let me know if there's any mistakes in here. Next up is the Spain team, and I would probably argue that there's only 2 debatable positions here, and that would be the left back and the left centre mid. The rest of them I think do look pretty nailed on. With the left back, I've obviously got Cucurella in there competing with Grimaldo. Reason I've got Grimaldo in is obviously because he's had an absolutely fantastic season. Cucurella, however, does seem to be preferred by a lot of the Spanish media reports that he would be in the starting 11 over Grimaldo. I did post recently, if you follow me over on Twitter, that the Grimaldo-Carvajal wing-back partnership doesn't seem to be too favoured. I don't know if it's because it's unbalanced or what, but a lot of Spanish people don't seem to favour those two as the wing-back pairing, which is probably another reason why Cucurella could make it in there over Grimaldo. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the friendlies for those two. The other one is obviously that left centre mid position, which would normally be Gavi's position, but he is injured for this tournament, leaving Rodri and Pedri with one other person to come in. I've got Marino in here. Marino started in 5 out of 8 of the qualifiers, so that's why I've got him so far. Some possible players who could come in for there is going to be Fabian Ruiz. He played in 3 of the 8 qualifiers. And then I've also got Olmo in there, who could potentially come in here and play the centre mid position. I think with that front 3, obviously with Ferran Torres and Olmo both being wingers as well, and both being very, very quality players as well. However, the front 3 does look to be the front 3 that is going to be playing for Spain. It is highly preferred, and I've not seen a different one yet so far. So that would leave someone like Olmo on the bench, who could potentially come in and play alongside Rodri and Pedri in there as well. Next up, we're looking at Croatia, and again, this is another team that could be prone to a potential formation switch. I do think, again, a lot of the guys are pretty nailed in here. Livakovic, Sotalo, Vardy, all players who played most of the qualifying games and definitely look nailed in. Sosa as well was a potential 50-50 between him and Barisic, and then Barisic wasn't selected, so I think Sosa has that nailed down as well. The right back position is where I'm a bit more iffy. It's either Stanisic or Juranovic. Stanisic obviously off the back of a very, very successful Leverkusen season, which is why I've got him in there. Juranovic could come in though. Juranovic played in 3 of the 8 qualifying matches, whereas Stanisic played the other 5, so that's why I've got Stanisic in there. But Juranovic obviously does still get game time for Croatia, so we'll have to kind of see with that one. I do think I prefer Stanisic just though for that position. The rest of the guys, again, looking at the midfield, there is potential. Someone like Kovacic could replace one of the attackers and make it a midfield 3. Someone like maybe Perisic, obviously off the back of a ACL injury, I'm pretty sure it was, which basically ruined his entire season. He could come out. Ivanusic could go out to the left wing. Maybe Perisic plays there anyway, and it becomes a 4-3-3 with Brozovic, Modric and Kovacic in the middle. Ivanusic, Kramaric on the wings with Budimir up top. I went for Budimir up top over Petkovic, despite the fact that both of them played in two qualifiers each, or both of them started 2 qualifiers each. Budimir, I just think, has had a bit of a better season. Budimir gets 17 goals in La Liga with Osasuna, whereas Petkovic only got 11 goals for Zagreb, so I think Budimir just slightly beats Petkovic there, which is why I've got him starting up top. Kramaric also has potential to start at striker as well, which could bring Meyer, I'm not really too sure how that one's pronounced, but he could also play at the right wing if they are going to go to a 4-3-3 formation. But I do think a 4-2-3-1 looks pretty decent. Again, Kovacic could potentially come in there. Next up, we've got Italy, who again is a bit of a minefield in terms of trying to predict this team. you're looking at the previous Italy squad from previous tournaments at the Euros and stuff as well, and it's totally different. The likes of Immobile hasn't been called up, Locatelli hasn't been called up either, and then even a lot of injuries as well. Zaniolo, who probably would have been nailed on for that right wing spot, is also injured. Berardi, again, someone who else would have been nailed on for the right wing spot, also injured, which left, well, for me it left Politano available at right wing to be called up for Italy, and once again he wasn't called up either, so bit of a difficult one to try and predict this team. Went for Raspadori at the right wing because he can play at the right wing, which is better for someone like Scamacca for his game time, with only Retegui as the other striker option. The defence is where it kind of gets a bit more difficult. Donnarumma obviously nailed in to play at or in goals. In Italy's most recent friendlies, they have been trying out a 5-2-2-1 in their two most recent friendlies. They've been trying out that formation, so there is possibility to see an extra centre back added in there. I do think Bastoni is absolutely nailed in his position, obviously. Quite far a standout in terms of the best centre backs for Italy. The other centre back is where it gets a little bit more difficult. We've got Acerbi, who started in, I believe it was 4 out of 8 of the qualifiers, so got him in there, but there is also calls from Italians to play Buongiorno in at the centre back spot, and obviously if that becomes a 5-back, there is going to be another position for someone like Mancini, maybe Scalvini, maybe even Darmian as well in there. So they're all orange because the centre backs is a bit of a toss up for that other centre back spot. Again, as I said, I think Bastoni is absolutely nailed in there, but Di Lorenzo is also someone who did play at centre back during those friendlies, with Darmian playing possibly as a right wing back as well. Think that's a little bit less likely, but as always a possibility as well. The centre mids as well, with the 5-back formation, Jorginho and Barella would be the two centre mids, so it would be Fratesi who I've got in there, who does miss out. Also possibilities that Pellegrini plays in there as well. Again, with the 5-2-2-1, it allows someone like Chiesa and Raspadori to play a little bit more central, which obviously would favour someone like Raspadori, who is more of a striker. But there is possibility for someone like Pellegrini to come in and play a bit further forward as well, if Chiesa, for example, wasn't going to play in that game. So finally we get on to one of the more easier squads to predict. We've got Albania. Now originally I had, how is it you say this name? I think it's Sikaleshi. I'm going to say Sikaleshi as the starting striker. He did play in, I believe, 7 out of 8 of the qualifiers and wasn't called up, which does leave Broja with a massive opportunity to take that starting striker spot. Again, kind of making things a little bit more easier when trying to predict the 11s. The rest of the team does look pretty solid. We've got Strakosha and Berisha as a potential 50-50 on the goalkeepers. I've got Berisha because I think he has played in 5 out of the 8 qualifiers, whereas Strakosha only played 3, and Strakosha has been sitting on the bench for Brentford all season, whereas Berisha has been playing games for Empoli. So I do think Berisha is going to be the favoured one to start. Another 4 million goalkeeper as well, if you are interested in there. The only one outfield I think could be a potential 50-50 is that left wing spot between Seferi and Uzuni. Again, if you're Albanian and you're watching this video, let me know who you do think is going to start at left wing, because again, both of these guys both started in 4 out of the 8 qualifiers, so it is a bit of a toss up to who's going to play there. Next up, we're looking at the England squad, and again, I think there's really only 2 positions here that I would consider to be a bit unsure of, and that would be the left back position and the left centre mid position. I think the rest of the positions are pretty straightforward on who is going to play there. Left back, obviously with Luke Shaw. We've got him in the squad there, but it does look as though he's not going to be fit in time for the Euros. Southgate has said that he doesn't think he is going to make the full 26-man squad, which really only leaves Trippier as a potential left back, with Chilwell not being called up as well. And we've got Joe Gomez in there as well, who can kind of play as a centre back and has been playing left back for Liverpool this season. So it's between Gomez and Trippier. I think Trippier just has a bit more quality than Gomez does, which is why I've got him in there. But there is always potential that Gomez could make it in there. And then we've got the left centre mid position. Whether that's going to be Phil Foden, I don't think it would be, because I don't think the Foden and Bellingham centre mid partnership would work really too well, with them both being really attacking midfielders. So I've got someone who is a bit more balanced in there. I've went for Gallagher. Could always be, again, like I've put in the squad list, someone like Kobbie Mainoo, someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. I don't think Mainoo makes it straight into the squad, as it is kind of just his first breakthrough season. Hasn't really had too many England caps either, so I don't think he makes it in there, but he has been really good, which is why I do think it is possible. Gallagher, again, someone who has had a fantastic season, and Trent, who just isn't naturally a centre midfielder, but obviously has so much quality that he could make it in there. And again, I think he does kind of have the same qualities as Gallagher, in the sense that he can attack and he can defend as well. Obviously not known massively for his defending, but as a centre mid, I think he does kind of have the required qualities to do so. So I've got Gallagher in there. Could potentially be Trent Alexander-Arnold, but that is what I think the England squad is going to look like. Next up we have Denmark, and again another one that could possibly have a change of formation. They do sometimes play a 4-3-3 formation, however I do think the 5-back is preferred. But we've got Christensen in there, who is primarily a left wing back, but does play right wing back for Denmark. There has been a couple of games where Christensen's played as a left wing back and Melee has played as a right wing back. I do have Ba in there right now. Ba only started in, I think it was 2, or was it 3? It was 3 of the 10 qualifiers. Christensen only started in 2 of the 10 qualifiers, but he is off the back of a very successful season with Bologna. Obviously they secured Champions League football as well, which is why I think he could make it into the 11. So we could possibly see Miele moving over to the right hand side and Christensen playing at that left wing back spot. Obviously I did mention the fact that they could play a 4-3-3 as well. I think that middle 3 is pretty nailed on. Obviously with the wingers, you're not going to be able to have 2 strikers, so I think Højlund is going to probably be the main striker, and Jonas Wind would obviously come out the team to allow for some wingers to come in, and I think that's where someone like Skov Olsen could play in right wing, and then someone like Darami could play in left wing as well. Again, don't think it is the best team that Denmark can produce, which is why I think the 5-back is going to be the preferred one. I do think realistically though, the only threat to this starting 11 is going to be Christensen potentially replacing Ba in the wing back positions. Next up is Serbia. Again, thankfully another pretty straightforward predicted 11 here. The only one who I think could make their way into this team is Lukic, depending on how Serbia want to play. The person who would come out for Lukic would be Vlahovic, and that would allow Lukic to play where Milinkovic-Savic is there in central midfield, and then Milinkovic-Savic would move up beside Tadic, and Mitrovic would be the sole striker. So it's really a 5-2-2-1 with Lukic and Gudelj as the 2 centre mids, Tadic and Milinkovic-Savic as the 2 attacking mids, and Mitrovic as the striker. But obviously you don't want to leave someone like Vlahovic out in such a big tournament as well, so that's why I've got him in the squad up top with Mitrovic. But there is always a possibility that Lukic could start in midfield. Lukic did start in 5 of the 8 qualifiers as well, which is why I think it is a big possibility. Vlahovic started in only 2 of the qualifiers too. So realistically I think Lukic is more likely to start than Vlahovic, but it just depends if the Serbian manager does want to leave someone as good as Vlahovic on the bench. Then for Slovenia, it is another very straightforward 11. I don't think anyone really threatens this team whatsoever. You can look at the qualifiers as well. Oblak played in 8. Well, Slovenia played in 10 qualifying matches, so Oblak played 8 of them. I want to say Korniknik played in all 10. Blazic played in 6. Bijol played in all 10. Janza played in 6. Serin played in 10. Elznik played in 7. Stojanovic played in 9. Mlakar played in 7, Sporar played in 7, and Sesko played in 9. So again, a very consistent 11 with the Slovenia team. I don't think really anyone on the bench could break their way into that. Next up, we're looking at France, another team that could really go either way. Starting off with the goalkeepers, obviously Maignan is the main number one for France, but he has, I believe, dislocated his finger. It was either his finger or his wrist. He's dislocated something in his hand, and he is a doubt for the Euros. But we are still waiting to kind of hear some injury updates on that one. So Maignan could still make the Euros, and if he does, he obviously would come in and replace Samba again. I think Samba's only 4.5 million. In Euro Fantasy if you are looking for a French goalkeeper, but obviously we are going to have to wait a couple more weeks for some updates on that. Saliba, someone who obviously has a fantastic season for Arsenal and really should be in this starting 11, but Deschamps said back in March that he wasn't really favouring him. He didn't think he was really ready for the French national team, and any time that he did play didn't really impress him too much. So for the looks of things, it looks like it's going to be Konate and Upamecano starting as the two centre-backs. Midfield is where we've got another bit of a toss-up. Tchouaméni obviously is someone who is carrying an injury right now, should be back in time for the Euros, but there is potential that he's not. Rabiot, another one who has played 6 of the 8 qualifiers for France, but I would probably argue doesn't have the same quality as the other midfielders that have been called up. So for the two centre mids, I think it is a bit of a toss-up on whether Camavinga plays, Zaire Emery, who's had a fantastic season, even Kante could come in, potentially replacing Tchouaméni as well. So centre mid is a bit of a toss-up. Have went for Tchouaméni and Rabiot though, because they did play the most qualifiers, and Tchouaméni does seem to be the favoured defensive midfielder. I think Rabiot is the one that is a bit more of a toss-up on whether that's going to be someone like Zaire Emery or Camavinga instead. But Rabiot I've got in there because he did play the most qualifiers. Up front, I think is a bit more solid. Mbappe obviously plays more on the wing for France, playing at right wing. Griezmann is nailed on in the attacking midfield position. Coman is a bit of a toss-up with Dembele. Dembele's had a really good season as well. Coman obviously does have his injury problems. I think he does start though. Looking at the qualifying, he played 5 out of the 8 qualifiers compared to Dembele only playing 2 out of the 8 qualifiers, which is why Coman is going to be in there. And Kolo Muani is someone I've favoured at striker, again playing 5 out of the 8 qualifiers. Giroud actually played in 4 out of the 8 qualifiers. I'm saying played, but started in 4 out of the 8 qualifiers. But I think if anyone's going to challenge the striker spot, it's going to be Thuram. He did only play in one qualifying match, but he's a really good season winter, scoring 13 goals and 7 assists as well. So I think if anyone is going to be playing at striker that's not Kolo Muani, if it's not going to be Mbappe as well, probably would be Thuram. But again, pretty happy with this French team. I think this is probably going to be the 11, other than maybe the goalkeeper if Magnan's going to be fit. And obviously this is presuming that someone like Tchouaméni is going to be fit as well. Holland is next, and again another team that could see a couple of changes. I've kind of went 50-50 in the goalkeeper, but I do slightly prefer Verbruggen over Flekken. Verbruggen played in 4 of the 8 qualifiers, whereas Flekken only played in 2, so I do slightly lean towards Verbruggen being the starting goalkeeper in there. The 3 centre-backs I think do look pretty nailed. I think especially with the quality that someone like Van de Ven has, I just don't see him making it into the team. Van de Ven didn't start any of the qualifying matches either, with Ake starting 6, Van Dijk all 8, obviously being the captain as well, and De Ligt starting in 2, but he was injured for a period as well. So I think the only ones that really could break into the defence is going to be the wing-backs. Dumfries, obviously one of Netherlands' best players whenever he does play, but Frimpong's having a fantastic season. I think it's 9 goals he's got in the Bundesliga for Leverkusen. So I think on paper, you would think Frimpong's had the better season and deserves to play at right wing back, but Dumfries is obviously so great whenever he does play for Netherlands. So I don't think he takes Dumfries out of the equation. I think you will see a lot of substitutes though, so I think Dumfries could be one that gets subbed early. I think he does get subbed early quite often for Inter as well, which is something to consider. Left wing back, I've went for Maatsen, someone who's never played for Netherlands, but the only left back positions, or the only left back options that they've got is Maatsen and Blind has played a lot of his games for Girona this season as a centre-back. So is he going to be playing as a left wing-back? He obviously can play there and has done for Netherlands. But I think with Maatsen's second half of the season that he's had, definitely deserves to be in there. Only 4.5 million as well, so he could be really nice. I think the front three is pretty solid. I don't think anyone really breaks into that front three. The midfield is only one where we could potentially see someone else. I've got Veerman. Veerman does take like most of the set pieces for Netherlands, which is why I've got him in there. Takes the free kicks, takes the corners. However, someone like Vifer did play more qualifying games, so bit of a toss up between those two. De Jong obviously is going to be fit, or should be fit for the Euros, and he is pretty nailed on, or he is nailed on whenever he plays for Netherlands. So it's really just the two wing back spots and that centre mid spot beside De Jong, which could potentially change. Austria are another team that are kind of suffering a bit from injuries. Their main goalkeeper Schlager is going to be missing the Euros and wasn't called up, which is again another opening for another 4 million goalkeeper in Pence to start in goals. I think he does edge it over Lowell by quite a bit, so we've got him starting in there. Defence, I think again is pretty solid. We've got Wober in there, who can really play left back, centre back and midfield if need be, and he did start in 5 of the 8 qualifying matches. It's just really what position he's going to be starting in that I don't really know of, which is why I don't have him in the predicted 11, but there is possibilities that he could come in there and play any of those positions. Their main centre midfielder as well, Schlager, another Schlager who's also injured, he plays for Leipzig, is going to be missing out through injury as well. He would have partnered Seiwald in the defensive midfield spot. So there is potential that Leimer, who usually plays out wide for Austria, obviously comes back to his defensive midfield spot that he plays for Bayern, and could play there over Grealish, and that would allow someone like Wimmer to play out in the wing. I don't think it's really much of an option. It is still a possibility, but I do think Grealish is going to be coming in to play in centre mid. Again, also someone like Wober could play there as well. Arnautovic is another one who I've got missing out. I've got Gregoritsch playing as the striker. Again, Gregoritsch played in 6 out of the 8 qualifying matches, scored 4 goals as well in the qualifier, so I do think he keeps his spot up front. Arnautovic was missing for 2 Euro qualifier games through injury. He only started in 2 of them anyway. So Poland is up next. I apologise if this is starting to get a bit repetitive. I'm trying my best to kind of keep this as brief as possible, but still trying to get into as much detail. So if you're still here, I appreciate you very much. There's only 2 groups left to go, so only 8 teams after this one. Poland, again, another team that does look pretty straightforward. Obviously, Matty Cash is probably a surprising one that he's not going to be playing at wing back. Was speaking to a Polish person on Twitter and said that it's very unlikely that he does play unless Frankowski or Zaluski get injured. So obviously he's not going to be making the 11. Midfield, I've got Szymanski who could possibly come in. He is more of an attacking midfielder than the other guys, so he could possibly come in for either Sliz or Piotrowski. But yeah, Piotrowski only played in 3 of the 10 qualifiers, Sliz in 4 of the 10 qualifiers, Szymanski played in 5, so there is possibility that the formation kind of does change a little bit, which allows Szymanski to play a bit further forward. The other one I've got is Milik, who again hasn't really been too great for Juventus this season. Swiderski has really been playing most of the qualifiers. He has played in 5 of the 10, whereas Milik played in 4. So again, bit of a 50-50 between who is going to be playing there. But I do think Swiderski is slightly favoured over Milik. So Belgium up next. Again, I think this is a pretty straightforward 11 unless, again, the formation changes. So Belgium have kind of been using a 5-back every now and then. With the 4 defenders that you can see now all being nailed on, they would slightly move over to the right a little bit, and Doku would actually come back and play as the left wing back. So you'd have Castagne as the right wing back, Vertonghen, Face and Thiat as the 3 centre backs, and then Doku would play in the left wing back. That would mean Onana comes out of the squad with De Bruyne and Tielemans in the middle, and then you'd have Trossard, Lukaku, and then another right wing, as you can see by the right wings on the list. Bakayoko could probably play there, Openda could play there as well, and then potentially Carrasco, but he is more of a left-sided player. So if we're talking potentially that Belgium do play that 5-back, Bakayoko played in 4 or started in 4 of the 8 qualifiers. Openda only started in 1, and Lukebaki only started 3 as well. So I do think Bakayoko would be the favoured right wing if Doku is going to come and play at left wing back. Also, the goalkeeper is where there is a bit of a toss-up. Courtois obviously not in the squad. Did say that he was going to take the summer to kind of recover from his injury. So we are looking at Castells or Sells as the potential goalkeeper. Castells I do think is the favoured one. Sells played in the most 2 recent friendlies. Both of them as well played in 3 of the qualifiers. Castells played 3, Sells played 3, and then Kaminski played in 2 of them as well, so you can't really tell from the qualifiers. Sells obviously played the most recent 2 friendlies, but Castells was injured, so it is a really big 50-50 in terms of who's going to be starting in goals. I do think Castells is just a bit better, and has a bit more of a reputation as well than Sells does as well, so I'm going to have Castells starting in goals. I think he is a bit more expensive than Sells is in the game, so I suppose from a fantasy perspective, you would probably be wanting Sells to start, because I'm pretty sure he's only 4 million, and Belgium have a pretty good group as well. So if we can get 4 million goalkeeper from Belgium, that would be pretty nice. Ukraine up next. The only position here which has really been a point of conversation has been the goalkeeper. Trubin and Lunin, again both being 2 very good goalkeepers for Ukraine. Trubin played in 6 of the 8, or is it 6 of the 10? I believe it's 6 of the 10. So yeah, so Trubin played in 6 of 10 qualifiers, whereas Lunin only played in 2. But what is worth noting is that the qualifiers ended in November, and Lunin only really started playing for Real Madrid in November as well when the qualifiers ended. So obviously Lunin's had a fantastic season, and the 2 playoff final to get into the Euros for Ukraine, Lunin played in both of those. So I do think Lunin is going to be the starting goalkeeper. Obviously fantastic season for Real Madrid, everyone's seen that, everyone's seen the performances in the Champions League, and obviously the qualifiers we can't really take into consideration because Lunin wasn't getting game time at that point. So I think the fact that he played in the semi-final and the final of the playoffs to get into the Euros pretty much locks his position for that one. Next we've got Romania. Now a couple of talking points for Romania. One of their star players, Morotan, is going to be injured and he kind of played in the left wing. The rest of the team does look pretty straightforward. The only one who could possibly come in there is going to be Sorescu, who can play both at right wing, right back and left back. Sorescu played in 4 of the qualifiers, whereas the other 2 guys, Ratiu played in 5 and Banku played in 6, so that's where I've got those guys in there. Up front though is where really the main talking points are. I've got Dragus up top, who isn't a natural striker, but a lot of Romanians seem to really want him to play up front and has kind of been tested there recently because the likes of Alabek and Puskas just don't seem to have enough quality to play up there. So I've got Dragus up front. Stiancu, I think pretty much nailed on for that centre attacking midfield spot, and Dennis Mann, I'm pretty sure is Romania's best player, so he's pretty much got that right wing spot nailed as well. The left wing spot is where it is a bit more confusing. I read something on a Romanian news page that Coleman might not be playing, might not be starting due to his lack of desire to really play football. I think they mentioned the fact that he was talking with Qatar instead of progressing his career on, obviously just kind of going for the money. So they did tip Mihaila, I want to say, Mihaila, to start at left wing instead of him, which would be interesting as well. Again, for fantasy perspective, it doesn't really mean too much, but is just one to consider as well. Hagi as well, someone who has been playing pretty well in the Liga this season, someone who could potentially make one of the spots as well. Okay, so 5 teams to go. We're going with Slovakia now. Right wing is really the only position where there is a bit of a toss-up here. I've got Schranz starting in there now, but again, possibility that Mack could come in there. Schranz played in 5 of the qualifiers, whereas Mack started in 6 of the qualifiers. Reason I've got Schranz in there is because he averaged 75 minutes compared to Mack only averaging 55 minutes in the qualifiers. So again, any Slovakians in there, who do you think is going to be starting at right wing between those 2? And that is really it. I think the rest of them do look pretty nailed on. So heading into the final group then, we're going with Portugal, who are another team, who are another one who do have a lot of 50-50s here. Starting off with the fullbacks, I think Cancelo does have his position nailed down, someone who can play both left back and right back, similar to Dalot, who I do have just on the bench right now. Did originally have Dalot in my predicted 11 over on Twitter, but I was told multiple times that Nuno Mendes is going to be the starter. However, obviously Dalot can play both the fullback roles, so I think there is potential that Dalot plays left back with Cancelo playing right back. It could also be the opposite way around with Dalot at right back and Cancelo at left back. I suppose it just depends, but a lot of people did tell me that Nuno Mendes is going to be the starter at left back for Portugal. We've also got the centre back spot, which is a bit of a toss up. Ruben Dias obviously nailed in there, but the other centre back, there is a lot of players competing for that. Pepe, Antonio Silva and Inacio. I think Inacio's had a really good season with Sporting, which is why I've got him in there. I was told by someone on Twitter that Pepe would still be the starting 11, or would still be the starting centre back beside Ruben Dias, so obviously he's still got a potential spot in there as well, and Antonio Silva as well, a potential spot after playing 5 out of the 10 qualifiers as well. So bit of a toss up for that one. Inacio only played 4, Pepe only played 1 as well, so I suppose if you were going off the qualifying games, it would be Antonio Silva who would be starting, but I do think Inacio does kind of just top him a little bit in terms of quality. That's why I've got him in there. Palhinha I've got just playing over Danilo Pereira. Both of them played 6 matches in the qualifier. That's why I think Danilo could possibly make a appearance in there. I do think Palhinha will be the nailed on one. Front 3, the only person I think who could really make their way in here is going to be João Felix. There is a possibility that Vitinha doesn't play, Bernardo Silva drops into the centre mid position, and then Felix plays on the right wing, which would have Leao, Ronaldo and Felix as the front 3. I think Vitinha's had a really good season, at least end of the season with PSG as well, which is why I've got him in there. But as I said, potential for Bernardo to come into the midfield, which would let Felix go out right. Next up is Turkey, and again we're looking at another goalkeeper dilemma. Who's going to start between the two goalies? Both of them played 1 match each in the 2 recent friendlies, so that didn't really help us. And then looking at the qualifiers as well, Günok played in 5 of the qualifiers, whereas Kekir only played in 3 of the qualifiers. Worth noting as well that Kekir played in the friendly which Austria beat Turkey 6-1. Where obviously he conceded 6 goals. Günok played in the friendly where Hungary only beat Turkey 1-0. So I do have Günok slightly favouring over Kekir in goals. The centre backs, I have been reading some stuff on the Turkish team, and a lot of Turkish people seem to think literally any centre back could be playing for the Euros. Looking at the qualifying matches, Soyuncu played in 3 of 8, Akidin played in 3 of 8, Bardaki played in 5 of 8, Kabak only played in 1 of 8, and Demiral also played 5 of 8, so there's literally just all of them getting basically the same amount of matches throughout the qualifiers, so it was a really difficult one to try pick 2 centre backs here. So again, any Turkish people watching, let me know down in the comments who you think the 2 starting centre backs are going to be. DM Ozcan, someone who played a few matches in the qualifiers. Again, someone else who played 5 out of the 8, so I've got him potentially playing, but I do have Yuksik in there because I think he is more of a natural defensive midfielder. I've got Arda Güler as well in right mid, obviously a massive prospect for Real Madrid, but what I have seen is that Kveke is recovering from injury, and if he is going to recover in time, he 100% will be starting in the right wing position. So again, one to keep an eye on for the friendlies. If Kveke's back, he will probably just play over Güler. I don't know if they'll find another spot for Güler to kind of give him some game time, but I think the likelihood is Kveke would come on for him and Güler would come off the bench in most games. Next up, we're looking at Czech Republic, and again a team which has just had their squad announced. And originally I had Brabec in to start as the middle centre back, but he wasn't in the squad. Again, someone who started in 5 of the 8 qualifying matches, so I did have him tipped to start at centre back. Wasn't then selected, which means I've now got Zima coming in to play at centre back, but I think this could possibly be Vitek I want to say his name is. Zima started in 2 of the 8, so again, not really sure how confident I am on him starting. Vitek only played in 1, so it's a bit difficult trying to pick that last centre-back. The other one is the left-back position, where I've got Dudera. I think he is primarily a right wing-back for Slavia Prague. He's got 5 assists and 22 starts as well, so he does look pretty good. And I've got him to start at left wing back over Jurasek. Sorry, I probably butchered so many names in this video. Jurasek again only has 4 starts for Hoffenheim this season, so I don't have him playing. I think Dudera plays out of position on the left wing back spot over him. Cerny as well, he was one of the better players in the qualifiers, scored 3 goals in the qualifiers for Czech Republic, but he is primarily a winger, and I've not got a wing formation for Czech Republic here, that's why he's not in here. And obviously we've got the 2 strikers being Schick and Hlozek, 2 players who haven't really had as much game time as you would normally expect this season in the Bundesliga, which is why I've got potentially Kukta coming in at striker. He played in 6 of the 8 qualifiers, so there's definitely a decent chance that he comes in and plays over probably Hlozek, if anyone. I think Schick, despite not playing too many games for Leverkusen this season, will still be nailed on at striker. So I think if anything's going to happen, Kukta would be coming in to replace Hlozek. And finally, we have made it to the last team, which is going to be Georgia. And again, thankfully, a pretty straightforward team here. Again, can't really say that I know massive amounts about Georgia, but from what I'm seeing, it does look like a pretty straightforward team. Again, can look at the qualifying matches. I don't even want to try to pronounce all these names. Mamachishvili played all 10 in goals. Kvaratskhelia played 9 out of the 10. Kasia played all 10. Diwali only played 3 out of 10, but there's really no other players that played more than that in terms of challenging him for centre-back. Azarove played 6 out of the 10 at left wing-back. Kakabatse played 7. Kitishvili played 7. Kokorashvili played 6. Chakvidatse played 6 and Mikotse played 8, with obviously Kvaratskhelia playing in 9 as well. So again, pretty straightforward team for Georgia, which is lovely. And that is finally going to end off this video. If you've made it all the way to the end, I have to thank you very, very much for sitting through all that. I did want to try and kind of like put my thoughts forward rather than just post the predicted lineups on Twitter. I feel like it's easier to kind of get your thought process out on a video. So I'm not sure exactly how long this video is, but if you've made it all the way through, thank you very, very much. Please make sure to leave a like and make sure to subscribe as well. And if you've got any videos that you would like to see in the future for Euro Fantasy, make sure to drop it in the comments as well. And as I said at the start of the video, if there's any players that you think are 100% going to be in the 11, if there's any massive mistakes I've made throughout these predicted 11s, again, make sure to let me know down in the comments, and make sure to let me know where you're from or if you're a fan of that team as well, just so it's a little bit easier to identify each of the teams. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.